Shalom lekulam. Welcome to this teaching on the secrets of Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah, which in the end you're going to see we're talking about almost the same thing depending where you live, if you live in Israel or if you live in the diaspora. So there's not much information when it comes to Shemini Atzeret. Even in the Zohar, there's not a lot of information. We're gonna read a passage in the Zohar which it's related to Shemini Atzeret, but it's related in a way that it is connected to all the other holidays that we've been through, like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and then how Shemini Atzeret connect with these holidays. One thing that is important for us to know is that the holiday of Simchat Torah or Shemini Atzeret is the final package of all these holidays that I just mentioned. This holiday of Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah is basically a holiday in which we're locking down, we are basically preserving and guarding these energies and forces that we have somehow attained through the ascensions and descents that we did through the holidays of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and then the descent or attainment of this light that we attain on Yom Kippur through the days of Sukkot. And then on the 8th day, which is the reason the holiday is called Shemini, coming from 8th. Atzeret is basically an assembly, but also may mean a stopping, a locking, a guarding. Through this holiday, then we are guarding those energies for the rest of the year. And there's a secret in there, and that secret is guarded in the Simchat Torah, in the joy of the Torah, as we will learn. So let's start with our lesson and to see, what is this all about. So first, let's go to the sources. Where do we get this holiday from? Where did they, the idea of having an 8th day, and why this day is also considered a Shabbat, Shabbaton, not Shabbaton, but a Shabbaton, according to the Torah. And we're gonna see that in Leviticus 23, verse 36, and also in Leviticus 23, verse 39. And it's mentioned, but it's not mentioned with details and things like that. So what we're gonna see is this on Leviticus 23:36. It says, 7 days you shall bring offerings by fire to the Lord. So this is talking about Sukkot, right? On the 8th day, that's Yom Shemini Mikre Kodesh. On the 8th day you shall observe a sacred occasion and bring an offering by fire to the Lord. It is a solemn gathering. You shall not work at your occupations. So it's basically considered a Shabbat, because it is a Mikre Kodesh, right? So then on 39, Leviticus 23:39, it says, mark on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the yield of your land, you shall observe the festival of the Lord to last 7 days. This is alluding to Sukkot again. A complete rest on the first day. So the first day of Sukkot is considered basically a Shabbat, right? And then a complete rest on the 8th day. So Beyom Harishon, Shabbaton. Uveyom Hashemini, Shabbaton as well, right? So 2 days considered Shabbat. The first day and then the 8th day. So this leaves us basically with 6 days that are not considered Shabbats, right? You can do what you need to do. So this is important because in here basically it's telling us that this day um, you also gonna be doing offerings by fire to Yohevah, right? Um, so it says here, Yohevah. So it means, that there's a day that there will be also some sacrifices, just like the 70 bulls that were sacrificed in the temple during this 7 days of Sukkot, and they decrease in number as the days progress, right? But this day is different. This is not for the nations. This is for the people of Israel. So this is the eighth day basically is between Yohevah and Israel, not other nations. Only these two forces, if you will, or these two sides of the system are gonna be working something out during this day, and we're gonna see what is this all about. Okay, so Shemini Atzeret, it's translated as the eighth assembly. So eighth is Shemini, and assembly is Atzeret. However, when you look at the word Atzeret, it can be also on the eighth. There'll be a stopping. There'll be, something that will stop. And what is it that is going to stop? We're gonna see that this has to do with the light of Bina, what we have attained during Yom Kippur, in which we ascended to Bina. Then throughout the 7 days of Sukkot, we bring it down to Malchut. This is basically a conclusion, a cease of that type of spiritual work that we've been doing. So it is translated as the eighth assembly. In the land of Israel, it is combined to Simchat Torah. So in the land of Israel, whenever Shemini Atzeret falls, you're going to have Simchat Torah as well. However, those of us that live in the diaspora, we celebrate Shemini Atzeret, and then the next day is Simchat Torah. So for more information on that, you can find the sources in the Talmud, also Shulchan Aruch and things like that. To go over that, that will change our flow. We will be discussing more like the loss of the holidays instead of the secret of the holidays. But feel free to search more about the loss of Simchat Torah, because anything that is written about Simchat Torah, there's not much out there, and anything that you can find is important for you to understand the holiday, and also to give it more importance when you're celebrating the holiday. Okay, so this holiday also it guards. It says Lin Sor, the energies of the 7 days. So it guards, and in source you can see here. Basically, let me see if I can do some yellow, maybe. Yeah. So when you see here in Atzeret, you're gonna find this letter here, right? And in here you're gonna find also the almost the same as where the tzaddik and the resh, tzaddik and resh, and then it is a stop. So it's a atzor. So once again, tzaddik and resh. So it is a stop of all the work done before. What is that work that we have done before? The ascendings, descendings that we did during Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and also during the 7 days of Sukkot. And if you want to know, about this work more in depth, and you haven't taken the lessons on the previous holidays through receiving the upper light.com, I invite you to look at those lessons. The one from Rosh Hashanah is 3 lessons because there was a lot to cover, and the one from Yom Kippur is 1 lesson. The one from Sukkot is also 1 lesson, and in there we cover the secrets behind the holidays. And now with this lesson, you'll be able to connect the dots of why it is important to do that job, to do that work, spiritual work during those days. Okay, so it guards the energies of the 7 days of Sukkot. It is a stop of all the work done before. While Sukkot is for all the nations, Shemini Atzeret is for Israel only, as we mentioned before. So that's something important to keep in mind. Shemini Atzeret, what is it? So it is the final holiday of the energy package, starting with Rosh Hashanah, following Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and Shemini Atzeret. It's a package that was designed to bring us closer to the Creator attributes. In this case, to bring us closer to the attributes of Bina. This attribute, the attribute of Bina, is the attribute of bestowal, the giving. And us, by us trying to emulate that attribute, what we're doing is we're emulating the attribute of Bina, but in our case, we're receiving in order to give. And we receive in order to give pleasure to the Creator. And that's something we learn in Kabbalah. We receive. That's what Kabbalah means, receiving, right? We receive the light. But there's two ways to receive the light. We take the light in an egoistic way, or we receive the light in a way that we can share with others. And that's basically two ways. We do a lolishma, which is for our egoistic desires and nature, or we're doing lishma, which is for the Creator's sake. And when we do it for the Creator's sake, what we're doing is we're doing it in order to satisfy the desire, the spiritual desire of our neighbor. So that's a way basically of saying the work that as Kabbalists we do is trying every day to love our neighbors and try to love them above our differences. So that's the importance of these holidays, is to bring us closer to the Creator's attributes, the attributes of Bina. We are blessed with the light of Hasidim during Sukkot. So during Sukkot, what we receive is the light of Bina when we ascended in Yom Kippur. Now we need to bring it down through the days of Sukkot. We have 7 days. We have 7 places where we are basically creating this kli, this vessel, where the light is going to be received. Once the light is received through the vessel, and the vessel is basically in a state that is not lacking anymore, that's when Shemini Atzeret, basically on the 8th, it stops. So it ceases because the work is done. This work that we've been doing all the way to Simchat Torah or Shemini Atzeret consists of 22 days. So if we count from Rosh Hashanah all the way to Simchat Torah, we're doing this job for 22 days. The 22 days are equal to the 22 Hebrew letters. And the 22 Hebrew letters is basically the DNA of creation. So what we're doing during this day is using all these energies that were used to create the world and start basically anew in this next year, right? That we just started. Because on the day of Rosh Hashanah, we're starting a new year, right? So now on the 22nd day, we completed that DNA. So we're basically getting ready to start using those letters through the rest of the year. It's a way of basically emulating what happened in the beginning when the world was created. In fact, Rosh Hashanah, it says, that it is said that is the birthday of the world and the birthday also of Adam Harishon. And it's for a reason. It's because the 22 letters were used during that time to create the whole system that we call the world, or the spiritual worlds as we know them. Okay, there's some teachings that we have in receiving the upper light. As of this video, some classes may be there or not, but in there we touch about the DNA of creation. We talk about the letters, the Hebrew letters and the DNA of creation. So I invite you to go there under the lesson song. It's called Opening the Gates of Creation, based on a book that I wrote, and in there I talk about the secret of the letters and the DNA of creation. Okay, so Shemini Atzeret, Simchat Torah, what it is all about. The year really starts after 22 days when we reap Bereshit. And when we say, the year, of course, the Torah prescribes that we are supposed to count the day that we call Rosh Hashanah as a day for us to awaken, and start working spiritually. But when we say, that it is when we really start the year, is because the work that we have done spiritually now needs to manifest in the physical realm. And when I say physical, it's also our mental, emotional, and it's very important to keep this in mind, because we're going to talk about a concept that in Kabbalah we know as or makif, and that's potential light that we are basically going to have throughout the year. And if we tap to this potential light, we can manifest certain things. But this light, it's basically in potential. We need to convert it to orpinimi, which is internal light. And when we receive that light, we have to receive it in order to receive, which we're going to talk about it a little bit later. So, Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah is the end and beginning of our yearly process of renewal. Okay? So, what we're going to have is that every year we're going to come back to the same kind of holiday, but if we are doing the right kavanot, that we are basically keeping in mind, all these things that we're supposed to be working spiritually, this holiday can become much more than just a holiday, and every year it will help us attain more and more and more the attributes of Bina, which is the attributes of bestowal. Okay? But this day is nothing, it cannot be, it doesn't stand alone. That's the thing. It doesn't stand alone. It needs to be included in a package that started when we were working already Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. And then this holiday will make more sense. And this is where the Zohar, Volume 3, on page 214b, it explains how this actually works. How is it that this system or this package of the holidays work, and how then Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah come into effect and make this whole package now a deal that we can use throughout the whole year. So what we're gonna do is, for the next few minutes, we're gonna read from the Zohar. And if you're using the Zohar, regular Zohar, it would be on volume 3, page 214b. But if you're using the Sulam commentary or the Kabbalah Center on a Bridge edition, English translation, it is on the Parsha Pinchas, items 27 all the way to 33. So let's read some of the Zohar so we can understand. Rabbi Chaya said to Rabbi Eliezer, I should like to discuss these days from Rosh Hashanah until the last day of Sukkot. Rabbi Eliezer said, but we have already studied them, and the friends have made their comments about them. Rabbi Chaya said, "Of course, but I heard something about them from the great and holy luminary Rabbi Shimon." He said to him, "Tell us." To which Rabbi Chaya replied, "I still do not grasp, and it is not as clear as it should be." Rabbi Eliezer said, "Although the friends have already discussed this matter, and it is beautiful, the order of these days is the secret of wisdom among the reapers of the field, namely among those scholars who have already completed all the clarifications of Malchut, which is termed a field. Come and see. The order of unifying all into one. How does that go? We have learned," he began, "Hashem has made bare his holy arm. This is one arm, which is the left column, on which are dependent salvation, vengeance, and redemption. But why did Hashem make bare this holy arm of his? It was to rise up the congregation of Israel, namely Malchut, from the dust and to welcome her with him so as to unite as one. When the arm is raised up towards her, there is much fear present in the world, until he rests that arm under her head to unite with her. As it is said, his left hand is under my head, and the judgment rests, and he atones for sins. Later the right column comes to embrace her. Then rejoicing engulfs the world, and all countenances shine. Subsequently, she, Malchut, unites with body, namely the central column, and then everything is considered as without schism, for the central column incorporates the right and the left. Then everything is perfect, and everything is joyous, and they, Serampin and Malchut, certainly unite, which is not the case at other times. Likewise is the order of those days, from Rosh Hashanah until the last day of Sukkot. It's like this. On Rosh Hashanah, the left arm is awakened, namely the left column of Serampin, to welcome the queen. The whole world is then in fear and judgment, and the whole world has to be in complete repentance before the Holy One. Later, on the 9th of the month, the queen comes, and the palace retinue, namely the children of Israel, make merry and immerse themselves in the river, that is Bina, to purify themselves so as to be worthy of the union of the queen with Serampin. On the other day, namely the 10th of the month, Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, for her union is accomplished by Serampin placing his left hand under her head, in accordance with the text, his left hand is under my head. Then, on the 10th day, Israel fast for their sins and are forgiven. For Superna Ima, namely Bina, looks kindly on Malchut in the union, for on Yom Kippur Malchut rises and quotes Bina, and makes atonement for all of the retinue of the place, namely Israel, since the left of Serampin welcomes her on this day, for the head of Malchut rests on the left. On the first day of Sukkot, the right column of Serampin begins to move towards Malchut, to embrace her. This is the hidden meaning of the verse, and his right hand embraces me. Then everyone rejoices, and all countenances shine. There is joy pouring pure water on the altar. People should be happy by rejoicing in many different ways. This is brought about by the right. For wherever the right side, namely Hasidim, rests, there has to be joy everywhere. Then there is joy with which to be happy. Later, on the day of Shemini Atzeret, is Simchat Torah, and then the mating of the body, namely the central column called body, is taking place. This is a union of all parts, for it includes the mating of the left side of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, as well as the union of the right side of the holiday of Sukkot, since the central column incorporates the right and the left. Thus, all is one, and this is overall perfection. And this day is definitely Israel's. Its portion belongs to them alone, for no other people has a part in it. That is to say, it is not like the festival of Sukkot, when 70 bulls are sacrificed for the 70 nations, because the nations have no part in Shemini Atzeret. Happy are Israel in this world and in the world to come. About them it is written, because you are a holy people for Hashem, your Elohim. So what we have here is basically the Zohar telling us that the work, or this whole package of holidays that we've been working with and studying and internalizing, this whole package basically is Rosh Hashanah, which is an awakening from above in order to bring Malchut, or the people of Israel, to repentance, so they can be welcome into the palace, right? So it's an awakening from above. Then on Yom Kippur, it's an awakening from below. This is where Malchut then goes up, and like it says on Yom Kippur, Malchut rises and coats Bina, okay, and makes atonement for all of the retinue of the palace, namely Israel, since the left of Serampin welcomes her on this day, for the head of Malchut rests in the left. So to have what we need to understand is the following, right? So everything starts with judgment, okay? What it says here, if you can follow the laser here, laser point, when that arm is raised up against her, there is much fear present in the world, until he rests that arm under her head to unite with her, as it is said, his left arm is under my head. And then judgment rests, and he atones for sin. Then the left hand basically is the left side, which is the side of Geburah, and that's the same column that you're gonna find Bina, right? So it's Bina, even though it's tall, and everything is also in that column of judgment as well. So what we have is Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are in the side of judgment, right? It has to do with Bina, who is basically judgment in the column of judgment. Then when Sukkot starts, and we start then receiving the Ushpisin. The Ushpisins are basically these 7 Sefirot of Serampin, and we start with Chesed. Now we start with the other column. The other column is the column of mercy. So now we're working with the 2 columns, right? And when we are basically, it says here later, the right column comes and embrace her, then rejoicing engulf the world. And it says the world because there's 7 days, 70 bulls that are sacrificed for the nations. And then subsequently Malchut unites with the body, namely the central column. And then everything is called one without schism, for the central column incorporates the right and the left. Then everything is perfection and everything is joy, and they, Serampin and Malchut, certainly unite, which is not the case at other times. So now we have basically a unification of these 2 forces, the forces of Geburah, Chesed and Geburah, into the central column, and the light of Hasidim, which is the life of Chokmah involved with the life of Bina, then can come down all the way to Malchut. So, like it says here, on the first day of Sukkot, the right column of Serampim begins to move towards Malchut, embracing her. That's Chesed. It's Dar on Chesed. This is when we invite Abraham. That's the first day. Okay, so that's the reason why it is said that Sukkot is from the side of Chesed. And then we start working from left to right, until we go to the point of Yesod, which is where we attain basically the Or Hasidim, as it says here. This is about the right, for wherever the right side, namely Hasidim, rests, there has to be joy for everyone. So in Shemini Atzeret, the Shemini Atzeret, the 8th day of assembly, is basically Simchat Torah as then the mating of, namely the body, the central column called body. Basically, this mating of the central column with Malchut takes place. In all these holidays, like it says here, for it includes the mating of the left side of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, as well as the mating of the right side, the holiday of Sukkot, since the central column incorporates the right and the left. And this day, the 8th day, belongs to Israel, and we want to make sure that you understand this. The nations are egoistic vessels, not only nations as we know them. Of course, we talk about 70 nations, but those are 70 root souls from where the 70 nations came from. And these are egoistic desires that need to be corrected. So during Sukkot, basically, that's what we're doing, correcting this egoistic desire. And then on the 8th day, which is Shemini Atzeret, that's for Israel. Israel is basically an altruistic desire for bestowal, desire for to share the light. And this is why that day is specifically for Israel and not the nation, because it's a day in which no egoistic desire is at work, only the desires that are above that egoistic desire called the nations. Okay, so how this works. So what you need to understand is in Simchat Torah we do something that's called a kafot. A kafot is basically to encircle, to dance around the Torah. Okay, and we need to understand that the Torah is a holy book, and it's a representation of the blueprint of creation and all the inner works that a human being and humans as a whole need to do in order to attain the light of the Creator. So let's look at this in a more I would say precise way as Kabbalah put it. So we receive the Or Yashar. The Or Yashar is the direct light from the Creator. Let's call it the Or Ein Sof. And as it goes through a filter called the Masach, that light is going to be accepted or at the same time rejected. If it's accepted, it will accept only certain quantity, but it's only in order to bring pressure to the Creator. So whatever it accepts, it brings in, and whatever it rejects, it rejects it. And it's on that rejection, the Or Hoser, where the in here is where the altruistic desire or the giving back to the Creator is. However, there's a light from that Or Makif, right? I like our Or Makif. From that light Or Hoser, it's a light that becomes Or Makif, and the light is a light that is around us. That light is around the vessel. That light wants to get in and fulfill the vessels, all the vessel's desires. But the vessel again is restricting itself to a point that it will only allow that light to go in if it is in order to bestow back to the Creator. So in Simchat Torah, basically we're saying we did all this work, we attained the light of Bina, we bring it down to Malchut, but now we have a whole year in which we're going to work with this light, in which we're going to receive that light, we're going to receive it basically we receive our Hasidim, and we convert it into Or Pinimi, which is internal light, and that internal light actually is going to fulfill our spiritual desires. Then there's a light that we give back, and that light that we give back is when we're doing our work with a different intention. Instead of an egoistic intention to receive for myself, I'm doing it for the intention of satisfying the creators, and the creator doesn't have a desire. We are the creator's desire, right? The only thing that is required from us in order to not feel the shame that we feel, taking from the creator without saying thank you, basically, and to feel like we're taking in order to give pleasure to the giver, because the giver receives the pleasure by giving something to the receiver, and the receiver gives pleasure to the giver by receiving it in a non-egoistic way, but in a nice way, in which you're giving basically, as we call it, thanks to the creator, thanks to the giver. And this is a way that we do it through the Or Hoser. But this light, Or Makif, is the light of Torah, is the light of correction, is the light that will put pressure in our lives if we're not living accordingly, if we're not receiving in order to bestow back to the creator. If we are not living properly, and that's what basically this is all about, this light will give pressure to the vessel, and between this light and the light that we're receiving will make us basically change by what we call the path of pain. But we can go by the path of light, and the path of light is basically, if we know how the system works, we will work according to the system instead of going against the system, which is receiving in order to bestow. And we do that by loving each other, by loving our neighbors and things like that. And that way we're loving also the creator. But in Simchat Torah, what we're doing, even though this is basically the work behind what it means to do the Hakafot, it's also that we're doing something. We're dancing with the Torah because we draw this light into our world and fill all souls with good fortune, masal, and abundance. So we bring that light down. We put it as Or Pinimi, and we're bringing good abundance and fortune. And this is doesn't translate, some people might think that means money, good business, and things like that. It doesn't translate into that. It means, your spiritual desires, what you want, what will satisfy you the most, and if you're working accordingly, you will be happy with your lot, right, during that year. This dance and joy is beyond the letters, understanding and comprehension. With letters, the Hebrew letters that we talk about. So when we read the Torah, we read it and we get comprehension through the forms of the letters. White, black against white, right? So the letters are vessels. In this case, we're not worrying about those vessels. We're not worrying about anything. What we're worrying is about this simcha, this joy. And there's joy in the light of the Creator coming down to us. So we have that eternal joy. And this is something that will happen throughout the following year, the year that we have just started after Simchat Torah. But we are having joy in advance. We are basically doing everything beforehand, and is that instead of being pessimistic, it's going to be a tough year, we're going to have a lot of work to do and everything, we are already saying it's going to be a great year, we'll be happy, and once we start reading the Torah, when we start then experimenting this light with wisdom and understanding, which is what the vessels of the letters are, once we start getting that wisdom dressed in Bina, the Chokmah dressed in Bina, which is our Hasidim, through the reading of the Torah, we will have good masal and abundance. And we will be happy because we started the year happy. We started saying, hey, Simcha means all my desires are fulfilled. So the vessel feels Simcha instead of shame. It feels joy instead of being ashamed. It feels joy because I'm doing the right thing. And this day is only for Israel because Israel is supposed to, in this day, practice self-love. Self-love meaning you love yourself because you're doing this for yourself individually, or you're doing this also for all those who are part of Israel. And then after that, you will start working throughout the year to become light. That day means to become light after that throughout the year. And that's the whole point. You need to become light. And that day is only for Israel because Israel needs to learn to be the light of the world. And they become, as it says, the feet of the Torah. They fuse themselves with the Torah that day. That's why they dance with the scrolls. And we fuse with the Torah. We become one with the Torah. The Torah becomes our pinimi, or internal light, right? And then whatever the Torah will bring us, which is the or makif, that surrounding light, will manifest through those vessels that we call the letters of the Torah. Also on Simchat Torah we do something, and is that we read the last parsha, Zohar Brachot. Zohar Brachot is the last parsha, and that parsha ends with the letter Lamed. Then after that we read the parsha Bereshit, and that starts with the letter Bet. And this is not basically, I would call it, like a secret. It's more like common knowledge already. It's a good teaching even for people that don't follow Kabbalah. And it's that these two letters, the last letter of the Torah and the first letter of the Torah, when we read in that day, the kavanot should be, the intention should be that we're uniting the end with the beginning, right? But also that union from Bereshit and Israel, which is the last world, those letters, the last letter and the first letter, create a world, and that word is Lev, which means heart. Lev is also equal to 32, the numerical value is 32, which equals to the 10 Sefirot of the Tree of Life and the 22 paths that connect those Sefirot in the Tree of Life. Okay, so that's why when we are in the Torah service, we call, she's a Tree of Life, right? Whoever takes hold of her will have, basically eternal life, because it is a Tree of Life itself. And the secret also behind the word Lev, which we will find in Kabbalah as well, is there, that word, is that everything that the Torah talks about is about man's heart. All the work that we need to do internally. So everything that we're reading, everything that we're doing, every holiday that we're practicing, everything that we're learning Kabbalistically, from the Sod point of view, from the Shaft point of view, it doesn't matter which level you use to study Torah, we're doing it in order to correct our heart, or egoistic desire. Okay, so think about that when we're doing this reading, because you're gonna have what is called the attained Torah, which is the one that reads the last parsha, and then you're gonna have the attained Bereshit, and that's the person that reads the beginning of Bereshit, and during that time, during that reading, you have to make sure you keep the right kavanot. That this is basically uniting these two things, the end with the beginning, Atzeret, remember the end, right? So we need to unite this with the beginning, with everything that we have done before, because everything is one. And at the end, everything has to do with our heart. Change your heart. At the end, the Creator just wants what? Pure hearts, right? So when you're dancing with the Torah, doing the hakafot, also you gotta have a kavanah that intention should be, if you are a person that is carrying the Torah at that time think that the Torah is basically the life, and what you're carrying in your hands is Torah, the orpinimi, basically. That's what you're carrying with you, the orpinimi. And that when people are dancing around, as you go around as well, that's the surrounding light. That's the light of correction that we need to work with. Instead of having this light of correction giving us hardship during the year, we need to work with it in order to have a blessed and wonderful year by using and tapping into these forces, especially the force of Bina. So I hope you have learned a little bit about this holiday. Like I said, there's not much written when it comes to Kabbalah about this holiday. There's also not much written in much of the sources, Jewish sources, but it's a holiday that is important because it puts together all these things done, and then at the end, it brings everything together into one. Basically, it's a day in which we're spending time with the Creator, just as a newlywed husband and wife is spending time together alone in order to start a new life. Okay, so you gotta see it that way. We are the bride, the Creator is the groom. We're working heavily in order to be able to get married. We got married during Sukkot, and then Shemini Atzeret, we are ready to start basically our new life, right? So we're spending some time together to know each other, to basically receive and share that light among ourselves, right? Talking about Israel, and then after that, we'll be able to share that light with the rest of the world. It's a day that we become light, and we need to become light not only for the world, those around us, but also we need to become light for ourselves. Sometimes we don't think well of ourselves, and that's part of also Secret of Shemini Atzeret, which is becoming light for ourselves in order to be light to others. And that day that we're spending time by ourselves with the Creator is the day in which we need to, or we have to start anew and be ready to start other forces that we attain during Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. Okay, so this is all for now. I hope you have learned something new. Most of this stuff is out there, but I wanted to make a video of Shmini Atzeret in order to have it as references for those who don't have the means of having a Zohar, and also the means of having a teacher, Kabbalah teacher, close to you. Or you may not have the money to pay a Kabbalah teacher. Here we do for free, right? Okay, so Hasameach, have a happy starting of the cycle of the Torah with the new sheet, right? And good myself for the rest of the year, okay? And when you read that last part of the Torah, which is a blessing, how many sons did Israel have? 12. It has to do with the 12th month of the year. The 12th month of the year is also 12 type of people inside Israel. Okay, so that blessings apply to all of us. We're part of Israel. And just keep that in mind, that Kabbalah when you're reading that parsha. And if you want to know more about that parsha, I have videos on the weekly parsha as well, in which I have each parsha explained according to the Kabbalah of Rabbi Yaakov Abu Kasega. Okay, so shalom. Thank you for being with me, and I'll see you on the next lesson.